We are being filmed. You guys on that side will let me know.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, since it's past 7, we'll let the police go, and hope we can be done in half an hour since we've got a stacked up schedule tonight. And I don't want to be out late.
Okay, basically from our last appearance, we went to the Board of Selectmen with the adjustments for the recently agreed upon CBA with the full-time police officers. And these adjustments were made and reflected in the budget with no other changes. So some minor changes, Catherine, you can probably just comment on procedural changes. But other than that, there's a reduction in the overtime request that we originally came in for. Because part of that overtime is going to be reflected in the fiscal year 18 budget for the academy officer. So,
And you've got the capacity in the 18 budget, or ready to look for?
no, we should be all set.
Yeah, right now we're looking at it,
Good. Because who knows, with all the storms, what the reserve fund will end up looking like.
Yeah, we were pretty fortunate, though. Disaster ones were pretty good.
Yeah.
And that bring the personnel in. And, you
Yeah,
never
this
know, it's
one
New
was-
England, you'll probably get a blast in April, who knows?
There we go.
So I guess if you just want us to go down with any of the changes, or do you want us to just take any questions, or?
Yeah, I
Anyway,
think,
you have in front of you, you have a detailed again that we gave you initially. This has been updated and reflects all the appropriate increases according to the contract.
the contract is the contract, so we'll just take that as read.
And we're looking at adjustments for 2 years on myself, my salary, and 2 years on the full-time officer's contract. So.
And as far as the reserve,
Reserves will be in negotiations, and that hasn't been resolved yet.
so in the end, some of the salary reserve that's in our budget has to sit there because it will get pulled out once you settle the reserve.
Any opening remarks?
I don't have any opening remarks at all.
Okay, so the Board of Selectmen Town Administrator budget is the one that's got the contract distribution. In that third to last column,
The,
as it works. 1,448,993
Nine.
for salary and wages.
right,
That's the real one.
right. You know, there's another difference in there too that you're gonna see, and it was brought to my attention by Catherine, is the uniform allowance went under the wage aspect of it because it's a benefit. Right.
Oh,
So there was no increase in it, it's just a matter of moving it to the line that Catherine needs for the accounting purposes.
And why is there still money in the uniform?
It just took out what was contractual on the level funded, and they have other expenses that come out of it. But the
Oh, okay.
amount that comes out is paid through payroll, it's considered a fringe benefit.
Yeah. You're being filmed. Thank you.
We're still required under contract when various items are damaged during performance of their duties to replace, so
Oh, okay.
various things. New officer,
Separate from
new officer,
what they need for
equipping and
basic
stuff
kit.
that come out of that line as well.
Okay. And other, aside from that $15,000 move, is level,
Yes.
as was requested. Okay, were there questions that any of you had on the budgets?
But it's some of these payroll items moved for Schedule A, is Schedule A a separate document that we have somewhere?
It's not something that you have, it's something I have to provide to the state. If you go on the DOR website, that's where they pull all their information on, off to do their database, their data banks.
And while we have you here, you had sent us, someone sent us the car replacement series breakdown.
Yes, I sent them to my two reps and yourself, Karen. I apologize, I forgot to bring them, but I do have it on my phone. If I could, want me to pass the phone around quickly. But basically, it showed where we're at with the mileage on this year. And just pass it down to John, whatever. So basically, it's highlighted in green, yellow, and red. Green brings us up to 0 to 70,000 miles. 70 to 90,000 is yellow. And 70,000 is where, if we were to trade cruisers in eventually, we would get the most return for them. But we never do that because we have a 100,000 mile warranty in our cars, and we don't have a big enough fleet to keep on turning them over at 70,000 miles. And from 90 to 100 in excess, it would be in red. So as you see, should we not get a cruiser this year, next year we would have 3 cars basically in the red, approaching either in excess of 100,000 miles or almost at 100,000 miles. So years ago, we used to go 1 car, 2 cars, 1 car, 1 car, 2 cars. And we haven't bought that second car because we've had replacement vehicles over the last couple of years. And the fact that the officers have maintained the vehicles in excellent condition. So we've been very fortunate that we've saved that amount of money, and that's $40,000 some odd dollars for a cruiser. And also the fact that we're running the warranties up to 100,000 miles, and we're trying to get rid of those cars at 100,000 miles. Because around, once we get over 100 into the 105 to 120 range, we've seen historically a lot of transmission issues, which are gonna run probably around $3,000 to $4,000. Catalytic converter has been a big issue in almost every single one of our cars, and some suspension issues as well. You know, the CO2 issues that Ford has been having with the Explorers that they've been working on. We've had 3 of our 4 main fleet already replaced by Ford with seals and various replacements to the manifold systems at no charge. So we have 1 car left to be inspected and retrofitted for that. So we've been very fortunate. The officers, again, like I said, take very good care of the fleet, so. But, you know, we're asking again for 1 car to maintain that, so we don't have to have those 2 cars later on down the road.
Did you say that the policy, the policy that we follow in terms of vehicle replacement is similar to what the state troopers recently adopted?
Absolutely, yes, yes.
And is that nationwide standard or?
Statewide standard,
It's a statewide standard?
yes. Yes, we tried, actually, when I was doing the research into it, on our policy, I found that the state police did the same exact thing. It was one of those happenstance things, so it seems like we had a pretty good reference point to check after that, so.
And basically, you consider the 2 primary vehicles, you put 36,000 miles a year each. And then
On average,
and then the primary backup gets 18,000 and the desperation backup gets 12. And so
Right.
if you
Right.
think of a car spending 2 years in the front line, one is the primary backup and one is the desperation backup.
Right.
That's basically getting you to 100, 2,000 miles. So
Right,
I mean, so the car we would be replacing would be a 2013, in excess of at 100,000 miles. So when you're looking at 6 years for a cruiser, that's pretty good usage. I mean, yeah, like I said, we take care of the cars, so we get every penny out of them we can.
But you're saying in the future, we would sort of expect a 4-year replacement cycle.
We try to get down to that.
Depending on usage, you might squeeze out a 5th year, depending.
Right.
So we should sort of expect that every year there's 40,000-ish, 45,000-ish dollars for a cruiser.
No, this cruiser, if we get it this year, will be the last cruiser that will
Right, has the new system on it.
standardize all of our equipment
Oh, okay.
and everything. So
So it says cheaper.
next year, if we got a car, it would reduce the cost because
Because
all
you
our equipment could be transferred over.
Transfer the equipment.
So we'd save $5,000, maybe $6,000 on the transfer of the equipment.
Okay,
Not
but
having
it
to
would still
purchase
be an annual cost, it just wouldn't be.
It would
quite
be
the same.
reduced, yes.
And what happened if we got one more year use out of every cruiser? Is it possible or not possible?
If we didn't get a car this year, the same.
or some year.
Or say we get a car this year, so all the equipment's updated. And then you just try to, as opposed to 100, you try to get it
Wait,
to
you have to
115.
you gotta take into context again, don't forget, we were going 2 singles and then 1 year was 2 cars.
Yeah.
We skipped that because in 13, we had an accident where someone rammed into our cars and we were able to replace it. That's why we were able to really get 6 years out of this vehicle, because it was a new replacement vehicle in the middle of our normal scheduling. That hasn't happened, so at some point, we're gonna get to that point, and it's really next year where we're at.
Lou knows a guy.
Did you ram into the back of our cruiser? That's fine.
That's bad luck, right?
But good luck in terms of town finances.
Yeah, it was, and
Unless
we saved a lot of money
something's
with that, and we have. I mean, even they hit me,
So,
my car was a 2012. We got a car replaced, it wasn't our fault, so it saved us a lot of money.
so absent those kind of issues, nominally, every year you could expect $35,000. But depending on circumstances, there might be a year where you can stretch, depending.
Yeah, you're right,
For
at
some
this point, it
reason,
isn't there.
There's less mileage.
That happened 6 years ago. So it could be, hypothetically, it could happen, but we're not looking at that at this point.
Okay.
And we don't see Ford changing their body structure on their SUVs anytime soon.
Which would make you go to all new equipment.
Well,
yeah.
that's why when they changed from the Crown Vic to the SUVs, but it's gonna probably be in place for a long time. And they're the primary supplier of those.
How much more expensive are the SUVs than the cruisers?
It's not that much more, it's about 2,700
Yeah.
to 3,000 in that range. Yeah.
In better all-weather performance.
Plus
SUVs.
size, with our police equipment that we carry now, it's very difficult for a Taurus sedan to be a frontline police cruiser. And then again, in the state police, we're the ones primarily were using sedans, and now they've all moved into SUVs. There's just too much equipment now that we have to carry. And fortunately, no one has to get in the back of the car with the cage. That's
Mhm.
even worse. We couldn't even fit people in the Tauruses.
Hmm.
True.
And they don't make the big Crown Vics anymore.
No, and that was a big problem when they were looking at switching to SUVs or not. Because a lot of departments had that issue where they couldn't fit prisoners in the back and they would have had to get paddy wagons, go back to the old days. And unfortunately, the SUVs have dominated our landscape in our country and have just carried over to police work. And they're all pursuit rated as well, so.
Prisoner transport's a huge problem, right?
It could be, you never know. Sometimes you'd be surprised.
Do we
Have
not
those
believe
paddy
the
wagons?
papers?
No.
No.
Any other questions occurred to anyone?
I know we asked you a litany of questions last time, so.
Right.
This
Yeah.
is
I think we answered all the
follow-up, so-
questions.
Just for the video, so people don't think we're not asking the police
Right.
questions.
We
Second
gotta
time
go back
around.
a few videos.
Right.
Okay, well, would anyone like to make a motion on
Well,
what
that's
these?
sort of like a comment though.
Oh,
So
yeah.
so the police budget's up 5.3%. If you take out because the wage injury pay, the wage injury pay is going to a warrant article from this year. So there's actually a $40,000 delta that doesn't show up in these
Oh, right.
2-point-something%. So, again, I think Article 3 is high, and I think this is a high budget, just given what we've put every other department through.
On the other hand, you gotta take the 15,000 down
That's
into
right.
the other,
Because I just got moved.
so.
Yeah, but I'm just,
Yeah.
if I look at the whole, if I look at the whole budget and just move this 40,000, it's a 5.3%. Because somehow, the last budget, the level funded budget, removed that item. In this budget, the level funded it kept it in there.
Yeah.
So that's what I was looking at the numbers, it's like, wow, that was a big change.
It's 2 years.
But if you go down to the bottom line, including other, it's a shade over 2%, right?
Well, so now let's swing the 40,000.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I did the 40,000,
Right.
if I did it right, it's a,
Okay. Well,
well,
it- it-
okay,
it-
163.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, it's.
So, I mean, because you do the 5 point, you take it over to Dunn out there.
Which, but we have to be careful because the fiscal 18 numbers don't include the back. You didn't fold in the fiscal 18 appropriation, you didn't fold in the recently signed contract in the
Right, the
18
wages.
column.
It's actually
Right.
18 and 19.
Yeah, my numbers weren't in there.
So will they, so was the 8x18 number bigger than what's on this sheet?
The
as it is?
actual-
The actual would be.
It's in the reserve, it's in that salary reserve right now, and once we go to make those journals, then it will look different, but.
Yeah.
Right, because the
The
contract
contract-
wasn't signed at that time, like?
Yeah. So you have to
Okay.
go back to the FY 17 number and do a 2-year.
Do a 2-year, okay, then do a 2-year bump, okay. All right, I mean, I don't,
Yeah,
have we done that? Do we know what the 2-year bump is?
well, it's like 100,000 out of 1.5 million.
Yeah, I mean, I have to do it, grind it out, but in an Article 3 world where we're high, I mean, I know I keep sounding the same alarm, but.
Yeah, no, but I think to be fair, you do have to distribute.
So I do, I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't come prepped for this, it's the first time I've seen this one, so I'm
Yeah,
not good on the
I
fly.
can do it quick. Stop trying to find a wireless network. I don't want it to find.
If there's any other questions that you have, by all means, we'll.
Che is the liaison to the police department, right?
Yes.
Do we wanna wait to make a vote until Che is here
Yeah.
Monday?
Yeah, we can wait till Monday.
I come back Monday.
Because Mike, to
too.
get, what are you,
No problem.
to get in line with what you're thinking, Mike, what,
Well, if I just look at Article 3, you know, I'm just trying to look at.
no, I'm not disagreeing about
Yeah,
that three,
I
but
mean-
I'm saying, so in order to solve for that,
Well,
how much of a delta would you want the police to make? And then we'll figure out that's impossible.
right, so I mean, to get Article 3 down, we probably need to get 200K out of everything. Now, I don't know if that's a big stretch or not, but that's kind of where I'm looking at. Now, I haven't made adjustments to the salary reserve, I haven't made adjustments to here, so I don't know what it comes down to. But if I look at Article 3 as try and keep it to 2.5% or thereabouts, that's all. So right now, we're kind of running around 3.61%.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah,
if
mean,
if you do the 2-year compound, it's like 3%
okay, all right, so,
on the police.
okay, so that's all. So I apologize, I don't understand this one, but,
Yeah, no, it didn't occur to me until I thought, wait a second, 18 looks an awful lot like 17,
yeah.
and that's why. So 18 doesn't add up.
It's not very, 18's, yeah. So those are the kind of things I'm just sort of looking at is,
But it works out to about 3%. It's not as bad as the 1 year looks, because it's really 2 years. 6.2%.
okay, I don't know, but
Yeah,
we should probably
yeah.
grind
No.
through it and,
No, you're right. You look at it, and
yeah.
on the face of it, it seems wild.
Can I just ask if we can get a copy of the mileage for our records? Do you have an extra copy, or do we have that one? Or can you email it to us?
Yeah, it's
This here?
Either
Yeah.
email or whatever's easiest.
Just
Just
take
we
a
have
picture
one.
and look at that.
Yeah, I think we have to give it to Jen.
There is an email that I think Shay had, that maybe I have, but it was while I was on vacation, so I didn't forward it. I think he didn't. But, yeah, okay. Thank you. Other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we'll vote police on Monday night. I better start making notes. Make something. Stop the spinning wheel.
What?
I hate the mass spinning wheel.
Well,
It's a
right.
pretty rainbow, but. We're not ready to approve minutes from either the 12th or the 19th, so we'll push that to.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Yeah.
These weeks where you have multiple meetings, just pile up.
I know, right.
Places to pay.
Yes, taxpayer.
We have a few minutes.
Right, I have hard copies of the special town meeting and the annual town meeting warrant.
Okay.
I know I emailed the annual,
Yeah, I
but I
did.
just brought the most
did.
recent copies if anybody needs them. Just the drafts.
I
But this is the special. Just grab one. This is the annual, all the most recent changes about dates. Yeah.
You can come in, Jen. Oh, she was Monday night anyway. Jen, the Albany Hill. Yes, I see that. Thank you. And technically, we've got another. There are spare copies. if you want to walk out with paper.
Would you grab me copies, please?
Like a baby. When you have a chance. When I go down, I'm down.
And I appreciate it.
So did we run over the police budget last year than what was in the model?
Did we run over?
Well, so the model said for FY 17
No,
said this.
there's the 100,000 is in that
Salary
salary
reserve,
reserve.
okay, so we got consumed.
My next step now will be to go and backfill FY 18
Okay,
with
all right.
what needs to happen for actual increases.
Okay, so salary reserve kind of gets
Up and down.
spread
Yeah,
through the,
yes.
okay. Okay.
I can also take an item off the agenda, correspondence, as far as I know. Like there was not,
I did the records request, but I did that since we were here last time.
yes, but that was really
Okay, that wasn't
between you and
correspondence.
Beth. Yeah.
Right.
That's just
correspondence.
general FinCom. Yeah. So Jen, it looks like 7:30. So you were going out to do the final contract for.
Yes, yep, so, this doesn't, nobody has this, right?
No.
No, thanks for
I mean,
making
I
it.
emailed it around.
Okay. Thank you for
About
making
an
it
hour
big.
ago.
So when I took the first, attempt at the budget, and then I went back and, with a lot of help from Catherine, from Kelly, and some other people in town hall, after the contracts, so the both unions, agreed to their contracts this week, so, we had more hard data. So, the far right-hand column is what I'm actually talking about tonight, as far as, changes or anything like that. So we were able to, because of the, changes in personnel, to bring down the full-time firefighter, line by quite a bit. So, one person retired and then myself being promoted, and the two people that were hired are, much less expensive than we were, so, we were able to, decrease that. The other things are contractual, so going from their contracts that they signed, there were increases, there were some stipends and some, incentives that we included in the budget. I still have that, request for the medical supplies, cause as of now, today I've already overspent medical supplies for this fiscal year, so we continue to overspend it. And then, last week, I had been asked to add the, ambulance billing, so we have that contract with Northeast Regional Ambulance to do our billing. And, so I looked actually back at that, and it's just about $2,500 for the last, calendar year, so, it's different every month, there's nothing consistent, it really depends on how many transports we do, but that is what it was, so.
Historically, that was not coming out of your budget.
Right, thank you, that was coming out of the selectmen's other, or,
It was, for 1 year, it was
Yeah.
a temporary, because it's brand new.
It's a pretty new,
so we
yeah.
have it
Yep.
nowhere.
so other than that, those are the only differences that are not contractual, those are the only. I did, actually, that's not true, I did add $3,000, for training. No, a little bit more than $3,000 for training, because, now I have, 50% of the full-time department is brand new, and we're continuing to aggressively, try to hire call firefighters. So we did send 2 people to the fire academy this year, I would like to continue to do that, but I also have to get people up to speed on code enforcement. Massachusetts just updated their building code, their fire code, and now there's requirements for hot work, so they have to continue to keep up with the changing, building world and fire prevention world, so I did add that in there.
And that's not.
It's,
I don't,
it's, training is,
60,000.
yeah, it was 56,911,
oh, and now, okay, so,
which is
okay.
kind of interesting.
I see, I see. So we should be looking at the very last column.
Yes, sorry, that's what I tried, yeah, the last column is the one that,
What's the last column?
that's,
It's just what's under the finance
Finance
committee, because that's what we were asking you to vote.
Oh,
We did it a little different in the police department, because they had submitted so many versions of budgets that I just made them all the same. But this one, we just, the work that we did was just in the finance committee column.
I took a first stab at it before the contracts were done, and then, so that's what's in the middle there, but it's clear to just talk about the outside column. So, so the overall budget, when you take out the contractual, information, is a 2.77 increase.
And once again, we really have to look back to fiscal 17, Catherine, because 18 hasn't had the contract distributed.
Right. It actually was, I think it's a 2.77% increase with the contracts. The only thing that was new was the 54,750. We took that out just to see what the percent was in terms of the increase of the total contract. But the 54,750 is a new program altogether
That was a stipend we approved last year.
last year.
Which was living in a reserve
That's
also.
right.
Yes.
It is now.
And that's a lot of the delta between the two.
Right.
It is,
yeah.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the big discount, because I was looking at it.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, because you were able basically to pay for the contracted raises with new people.
Right, right.
And then again, same as with the police, the clothing and uniform allowance, about $10,000 came up from the other expenses and is now in the wages to be in conformance with state reporting I need to do. I think it's my.
Okay.
You know, with regards to the ambulance billing, I mean, that's pretty much all being moved, whether we like it or not, right? It's not something we really can vote on. Like, if we said no, we didn't want that $2,500 in the budget, where else would it go?
General fund.
It would stay in the Board of Selectmen professional services, but it doesn't align with the fire. I mean, it's directly related to what the
Right,
offset
yeah,
of the
I was
ambulance revenue, so it
Curious
doesn't
as to
make
what the
sense that it's there.
logistics of that would be.
Okay, so the paper that you gave us, the $1,900 for professional services, you say should be boosted up to 4,400.
Right.
So we would need to vote that as an over guideline.
It's on the over guideline list too.
The newest one?
Yeah,
Good.
yeah,
I'm drowning in
I
paper.
know.
So now it's talking this stuff.
I think it's the last thing on it.
Yeah.
When was that
And
newest one issued? I'm
It's,
sorry.
it's gonna be handed out.
You can have it now if you want, or you can wait. I just want to make sure we don't miss anything. And the medical supplies, we already voted. Possibly to supersede, but after Monday night, you could change your medical supplies line of 2,500 to the 5,000 you were looking for, right?
Okay, okay, I didn't know that, okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, voted. And the same with the travel expenses.
Yeah.
Travel's gonna get.
So that's okay, no, that's
Yeah.
okay, yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we did vote it, just,
Right.
We voted.
and you've got it in there. So really, the only things that are missing are the 2,500 for the ambulance billing and the extra 2,500 in medical supplies.
That's right.
From this next to last column.
Mhm.
But the medical supplies you're saying was approved?
Yeah, pretty much.
I think we voted against it.
Did we?
It didn't pass.
Oh, I'm sorry, we haven't voted it yet.
Yeah, I think it got put on hold till she came back.
Yep, I'm sorry, you're right.
We did vote it, though.
I shifted a line.
I'll see that.
I don't think we voted that.
It might have been, was that the three
So that
vote?
Board of Selectmen approved.
The 2,000 for the contractual chief contract, that's been approved and that's included in this, right now it's in top,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
just to highlight it.
My mistake on the medical supplies. So the question for the chief as far as medical supplies?
Yeah, it's just, we continuously, call volume is increasing. So like today, I bought 2 more cases of gloves. The people have to wear gloves, they have to wear masks.
You
Again,
can't reuse
we cannot reuse them, they're single-use disposable. There are some items that we want-to-one exchange with ambulance service, there are some items we want-to-one exchange with Beverly Hospital, because we have an agreement with them. But then there's just, some of those disposables, like neck collars and stuff like that, that would have to be, purchased or single-use disposable, and, I mean, it just is, it is, they have to wear them, so.
And so what you've been doing, because I don't think you've needed a reserve fund transfer, you've been
Taking it.
scrubbing other lines
Yep.
and hoping.
Yep, and then, and one of the things I thought, I heard, there was conversation about the fire alarm monitoring, and I thought that maybe I could clarify that, if I
Oh,
could
that
help
would be
people.
good too.
So I didn't put that, I didn't ask for that, because I'm gonna absorb it into my budget from our building, and then I think I have to talk to the alarm company, but, because we still, that, old fire station, old highway department is still another building that needs to be monitored. But so, I just have to tell a little bit of a story. So in 1999, up until 1999, there was an orange wire that ran from each town building to each town building, and that was the monitoring for the fire alarm system. You can still see it. I just noticed it in front of the man, the trust fund man, on Washington Street.
David Strong.
Yes, there's an orange casing hanging in front of his house, but anyway, so that orange wire, is what the fire alarm system was for the town. And it was a nightmare, so if you had a tree that came down, which never happens here, you would have trouble and you'd have to go out and fix it and everything like that. So in 1999, the chief sent an email to all of the, people that were on that, and I don't know how it transpired, but over the years, People like Topsfield Crossing was on that system, Little Brook Village was on that system, Washington Meadows. They kind of picked up businesses and buildings along the way. So in 1999, they changed to radio boxes so that it's transmitted by radio. It's transmitted to the police station for fire alarm monitoring. There's 13 municipal buildings on the system, and there's 13 private businesses on the system. So since 1999, for free, everyone's been having fire alarm monitoring. It reported initially to the police station in Topsfield when that's where the dispatch was. And since we switched over to the Regional Communications Center, it's been over there. So they've monitored as part of their the services they do. A couple things happened. The fire alarm, when they went out to bid for the Regional Communications Center, the person that they awarded the contract to suddenly passed away. So after we had the system all set up and everything like that, he unfortunately passed away. And his company was sold to another company in New Hampshire. Around that time, the Regional Communications Center started looking at what their costs were and how much the sheriff was absorbing, weird. And so they handed me the licensing bill for $2,500 for the Keltron, which is the machine that monitors all those radio boxes. And I paid it up until July 1st of 18, I paid it up until then. And they also gave me the bills so I could have a frame of reference for the repairs to the system, which was over $13,000. So I immediately said, hold the horses. So we are, there's a couple things. We are, according to NFPA, we're not qualified to monitor fire alarms. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. What ends up happening is I end up chasing trouble alarms, central pole failures, all this kind of things in all these buildings around town. I don't know anything about that stuff. Our regional communications people are emergency dispatchers. Their job is to listen to our staff and keep them safe, and to answer the phones of our people calling for help, not to monitor fire alarms. So Essex did the same thing. They stopped their municipal fire alarm system for all the same reasons that we're doing it. So last year, I sent out a registered letter to each of the buildings. I spoke to each of the department heads of their buildings. And so most of the private people that are already on it are grateful for the opportunity to have almost 20 years of free alarm monitoring. And they've all switched over. Some of them did it immediately. Institution for Savings immediately switched over to their own monitoring. The reason you haven't seen it in, so what I heard was that people were concerned because they had only saw it in the park and cemetery budget as an item. Every other department already monitored all their buildings. So the schools are monitored already for burglary and for other things. The water department is monitored for burglary and chemical chemical levels and tank flow and all that stuff. And
The library.
the library's monitored by a whole bunch of different places. So that's easy for them. There's nothing that has to change. So maybe the interior guts of the radio box has to change, but nothing else has to change. So it wouldn't impact their budget. Or be a minute impact. So it's a change for the park and cemetery budget. It's a change for the fire department budget, and it'll be a change for town hall budget. And but so that is the story. That's the reason why we're doing it. We have no business monitoring of fire alarms, and
You're not central station.
right. That's what will happen now is that
security or whoever.
right. The fire department will an alarm company will monitor us, and then they'll call the rec and they'll dispatch if we need dispatch into the building. So that's the reason why imagine you see it in the park and cemetery because it's a change for them, but you shouldn't really see it. Everybody else already does it. And like I said, the private, with the exception of one private building, they were grateful for the time. So it wasn't a really smooth transition. So that's a story behind why you hearing about the radio boxes and the alarm system and.
What's the net impact to your budget?
It's $40 a month for monitoring, and then there's an inspection fee, and then there's about $600 in changing the guts from this Keltron to the other monitoring. But I'm gonna try to absorb it in the budget, so.
So you've just got $1,000 in
Right.
alarm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, so. it's a work in progress.
Okay.
And so we should expect Park and Cemetery to have an annual $1,000 kind of fee.
Yeah.
$40.
They could, I mean, there's certainly, I went to a couple of
Plus
different,
inspection.
I went to a couple of different companies. I mean, the beauty of the fire department and like Park and Cemetery is it's tiny. The system is tiny. It may be 1 or 2 detectors, or probably heat detectors. And so therefore, especially we're fortunate in town, there's 2 alarm companies, plus there's actually more other alarm people that live in town. So there's a good market for it too. So I did get some different prices and,
Okay, well, that explains that.
yeah, so it was never in our budget. It was, I actually don't even know if it was ever in the police budget a million years ago, but. And then what the rec is gonna do from now on is they'll probably end up, they haven't decided yet, but end up charging a premium for if they're monitoring, different towns' alarms. So, cause the town of Middleton, charges for their alarm monitoring, but it goes into their general fund, so.
So we're being recorded.
I can stand.
Okay. I have to let you know. Okay, so does that all make sense to everybody? And in terms of the warrant articles, we've got the open guidelines, we've heard. We talked about the vehicle 2 repairs and
Yeah.
voted them.
Yes, we did.
And we talked about the PBE.
Yeah, I was gonna send an email, but I didn't want to overstep my bounds, but did anyone watch Blair Miller's special last week on Boston Fire? And so maybe I'll send a link to you guys, and that explains why it's so important to take care of the gear and have the gear that's correct. The firefighters are at a 9% increase in cancer over the general population because of their exposure, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't know what's burning
Right.
when you go in, and there's nasty stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, we already approved that.
Yeah,
What? Oh.
yeah. So then it's just,
It's the $2,500 in medical supplies and then the rest of the budget.
and the 2,500 for the ambulance billing, which it's bringing in revenue, right? to the
Over
general
60,000,
fund.
right.
Yeah. In fact, that was the argument, maybe back in the budget forum. that-
It was, that's what someone brought up, and then there's Mass General law that allows you to establish a fund where that could the direct impact of the ambulance could be taken out of the general fund, so.
Or it could be left in the general fund as long as we understand that that's
Yep.
who was generating it.
Yep,
We tended not to have extra revolving funds.
right.
That'll be a discussion for
Yep.
next budget season. That's something we'll need to vote on now.
Yeah. Do you wanna make a motion?
Sure, yeah. I'll move to approve the FY19 budget as presented here for the fiscal year 19 Finance Committee column, and to include, in addition, $1,900, addition $2,500 for ambulance billing contractual, and $2,500 additional for medical supplies.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion? Since Eric sort of rolled it all into one, does anybody
Sure,
wanna
I
talk
mean-
about?
And we can break it out.
I'll just, I haven't had time to, not that I should be the only one to look at it, but it's sort of a new budget coming in first time. We haven't had a shot at looking at it and parsing it down. And it looks to me like it's high, just from a, it seems like we're buying extra services for the town.
Year 2.77 increase total.
So if I do the 838
If you
versus the 721, and I compound that over 2 years, I just don't think it's 2.something%.
It's 13.97% increase from the FY17 budget to the FY19 budget, but that is including the 54,750, which is a new program that the town, that the FinCom's accepted
We've already
in
voted on
the
that.
last year's budget. If you take that out, that's where the
Okay.
2.77 comes.
So, okay, so
Yeah.
whatever it is, but I still think it's a
Yeah,
lot of resources going in, and I think we're purchasing more fire safety or fire services at a marginal, and I'm not, I'd like to have the discussion is, at the margins we should be talking about, does the town want to pay more for more services, or the town be comfortable paying less for fewer services?
That sounds like a policy discussion at the Board of Selectmen level, not necessarily a discussion that we'd be having here for this budget season, would we?
Well,
I
I mean, the discussion
I mean-
about how to get better overnight coverage happened last year.
It did. And so we had no problem talking about that policy discussion here then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think it's,
Right, yeah, it was
Yeah.
a separate warrant article
was it a warrant article last year?
for the salary reserve. It was a salary
It was
reserve.
money in the salary
Reserve.
reserve for all
Article
sorts
third.
of
Right, but
things.
it wasn't out there in front of the
Reserve.
town, we're allocating money to do
No,
this.
it was.
it was
Yeah.
done like
It's in
this
salary
last
reserve.
year, as above and beyond,
Above and
which is,
beyond.
doesn't show up
Okay.
as the warrant.
But
It was,
yeah,
it was,
Yeah.
The
intended
salary
to go into
reserve
Article
account
Right.
itself was, but not, wasn't called out.
So, I mean, I just think we're sort of in a position of, you know, we're spending more to get more, and I don't know if that's, I think it's sort of stealthy how that's happening. I think it's, you know,
It's funny, I don't know if we're spending more to get more, I think we're spending more to maintain the
Oh,
same.
well-
That's the, there's a discourse in town where people want you to believe that we're spending more to get more. It's not increasing town services. I think right now you have a situation on the overnight and the call that you weren't getting people to show up, and then you have a liability where people aren't able to show up to actually manufacture, or to operate the right equipment, et cetera, and that's why that 54 is in there.
And in fact.
Well, let's strip
is
the
it-
54 out
Strip the 54 out.
and then have the conversation as to where we.
I'd strip the 54 out and strip the medic part.
Okay, so you're
Yeah.
withdrawing your motion?
I'm saying if they wanna continue the discussion,
Mhm.
is to have the discussion to not include that if there's other areas that they think
No,
the committee feels more they wanna press on.
if it's negotiated in the contract, then
Oh, let me ask the question the way that we'd ask the schools. Outside of what's contracted, if you were to reduce this to keep it at guideline, what are the reduction in services that we'd have to choose to have the number be the same?
I think that.
That's, you know, that's how we ask the schools to.
Right, yeah, I think you
right?
talk about
So-
maintenance of vehicles, you talk about, you know, training of firefighters. Those are the things you can control.
Right.
Which I don't think either
The
of
maintenance
those
of
are.
the vehicle is a little different, because that's in the $300,000 capital number,
Uh-huh.
$18,000.
So you're talking about wages only?
Well, that's what's hard, it's the other one, it's the
Operating budget.
non.
well, you might have a maintenance budget line in here.
yeah,
Um,
there's a maintenance.
I mean, the main thing to control is training. That's the, that's the big.
And that number's up because the two to three senior firefighters
Three.
retiring,
Right.
and with the new ones coming.
But what you've saved in having
Right, that kind of offsets
newer
that part of
people,
it.
it sort of offsets the extra training. The question in my mind, this $54,750 for the overnight coverage stipends, is that negotiated in the contract? So can we choose to not have people in the station and then they don't get paid, so we don't have this cost
They're not gonna be in the station anyway, that's just,
available?
it is, they're saying that they're gonna be available.
So
So there'll be
if-
nobody, still nobody in the station.
Right, okay, so if we say, never mind, we're not gonna require availability, we wouldn't have to pay this out. I'm trying to figure out, do we have to have it in the budget because we have to pay it because you just negotiated a contract? Or is it, well, it's in the contract that if somebody says he's available, he gets paid?
It says they'll sign up for,
They'll sign up for it and receive the stipend.
Uh-huh, but if we never
There's no
make
sign-up
them-
list.
if we never make a sign-up list available, we don't have to pay it. I just don't wanna say, no, not gonna have that $55,000 in the budget because we didn't think we could afford it.
right.
and then have the call firefighters look at us and say, excuse me, that's contractual, and we're in some kind of a lawsuit.
I just wanna be
Situation.
very clear that there is a problem at night. That we are a
Yeah.
24/7 service, that people have, 32% of our emergencies happen at night, and people are not coming out.
Oh, yeah, we
So-
talked about that last
So
time.
I just wanna
Yeah.
be clear that you could pay and put 2 people in the station full-time. I mean,
Which
that,
would be more.
correct, right, so, I mean, so this is a stopgap, I think, to that of some sort, whether it be shift work by call firefighters, or whether it be a, revamping of the full-time personnel, but it's certainly less expensive than many of the alternatives.
Is there a way to reduce it instead of?
You might not use it, you might not use it, I mean, you might not use all of it.
You might not if they don't show, if nobody signs up,
Right,
they're just
I mean,
not
it's-
gonna.
It's there and it's available and might not be used.
I think that
But-
time will tell, I think this is a,
Guaranteed
this is a, it's new, it's an attempt to try to help at night. And we're gonna have to do something at some point. So, there is nobody coming, so and the emergencies just keep getting more and more complex. And so, whatever that multi-system approach is gonna be, we're gonna have to do it, but this is gonna buy us some more time.
This is something the interim chief talked about with us last year.
Right,
Yeah.
so I think we're talking about response time at the end, right? Does someone come from the station, or does someone come from somewhere else?
We're talking about responding,
Somebody showing.
coming or not.
Right, so,
This stipend is just to say, yeah, I'll be in
I
town.
won't go to
So
market
I will
basket.
come to the station in an emergency.
They're still gonna be delayed because a lot of our people are not even in town anymore, so, that's a whole nother conversation.
So going back to the banding like with the school, so if you look at the line 220, all the second half line items here. The 51,930 all the way down to 58,590.
Your other,
All those items are identical to the FY18 pretty much, other than the request of the 2,000 increase,
yeah, and then the stuff on the top
and then
line.
moving that one line up, right? So that whole base, you're like, okay, that's the same. So then you look up top, there's the new call firefighter contract and new contractual commitments. So if we honor the contractual commitments and we want to keep the dollars the same, that means that the other items from last year, we'd actually have cuts to keep the dollars the same.
That's right, that's the way I would view it. Yeah. Where else are you gonna take it from?
And so I think John's asking, what would those cuts be?
What would the implication be?
What would the
yeah, what would
implication
you
of that
trade-
be?
yeah, right, what would you be giving up to the town at the margin?
Well, if you wanted to take 50,000 out of something, really the only place you can take it out of is the full-time firefighters, which is a person, which means you don't have
It's the
12-hour
same discussion as the
coverage
schools, it gets
anyhow.
back down to people.
Yeah.
Because you can, what are you gonna say, like, oh, we're not gonna do the supplies or the teeny stuff or the.
The muffler just rotted off engine 3 the other day, I mean, like, you have to, there's ongoing maintenance stuff too, and try, and so, like, to me, those are the bigger items, building maintenance, vehicle equipment
Yeah, you
maintenance,
got
and,
28 grand,
I
you got
mean-
all the equipment.
But when you consider what it costs for damage to the building and what it costs for a new truck,
right. It's hard.
yeah, there's not a lot of places to go. And we already managed to get back to having at least 2 people on at a time, so you
Right.
don't have a safety issue.
Plus you lost a lot of institutional knowledge.
We
and You're
did.
training up brand
We
new,
did.
we're hiring and training up brand new folks. But with that loss of institutional knowledge, save $12,000 in salaries.
And cost an extra 8,000 in training.
Right. Trade off.
Well, you get what you get.
Well, are you training them on ambulance services?
Train on everything. Most of the people that have come in are already EMTs, and some of them are at paramedic school, but they need to be trained on everything. Roads, driving trucks,
How to do inspections properly.
Yeah.
and-
That's more the full-time people, but still.
So I keep getting back to the same spot as the original conversation we had, right? I think the way you get efficiencies is through regionalization, broader conversation outside of the FinCom review.
Yep. Yep.
We can determine to not spend the maintenance on the third big truck and then you risk mutual aid of those towns. There's, what's the purpose of our fire department? Is it just fighting fires? Is it doing firefighters and ambulance? I don't think that's a FinCom decision. I've heard people suggest that people should just let homes burn down, but then there's that safety issue on it. And then there's what percent of the calls are fighting fires versus saving people.
Sure.
So the options, I guess, the broader discussion is if okay, where do we want our fire department to go and what does the town want out of it? And that's broader than our FinCom. And if it's hey, in 2015, we spent $700,000 on the fire department, we wanna spend $700,000 today, $700,000 today gets you a lot less. And then you either have no services or rely on people and then get kicked out. But so, until there's a broader forum where people understand the people that don't think the fire department should be an ambulance service, it's like, okay, if we don't do any ambulance services at all, what's the solution on that and what's the cost to our town? There's a broader discussion on that. So, we're stuck in this situation where it's like,
You got 2 days to
if
vote.
we wanna vote a budget that ties to last year's appropriations of $767 and honor the contractual obligations, you're saying blindly cut $64,000 from those bottom 22 lines. Of each line is $1,000, $6,000, $800, $100. You're just not doing whatever number of those. And I don't even know if that's viable or not. So that's what's frustrating about being on the FinCom.
No, I
right?
get it.
Is that, yeah, we wanna say these things, but if you get your brain around what that really means, it's cut basic stuff or not honor contracts.
That's right.
So it gets to the contract negotiation or the scope thereof, which is not FinCom.
Yeah, I mean, those discussions presumably were held with you and the selectmen and any number of selectmen's meeting when you were going through budget development.
Well, I agree with you, Mike.
Right.
It seems high.
It-
It all
Yeah.
seems high.
It seems high, but-
Every budget
But I mean,
seems
what
high.
they would like, if you talk about ambulance service, if you talk about like in the public services sector, that is one service where there's actually private alternatives that can.
Well, they come,
And we have
They
that.
do.
Right,
It's a
okay,
shared service.
right.
and
So-
we only transport when they can't get here in a timely
Yeah,
fashion to
but-
get somebody to the hospital.
Right, so so I share the frustration, I'm just
Yeah.
more on the line of, you know,
So
If they're
I'm
willing to
okay.
break
is there a
it
way to
down.
do less and spend less? Yeah, that's.
that's what I wanna hear.
Yeah.
What are the ideas of what in these, if you're looking at just these lines down below, all this other stuff's contracted up top. So on the stuff down below,
Right,
Well, the stuff up top's not necessarily contracted in the sense that you just go to all call on the weekends,
Well-
which isn't practical.
when I look at all the lines that say new, almost all of them say contractual next to it.
Right, it's a question of the number of people, not what you paid an individual.
Correct.
But it's not practical to say, well, if we do with one less full-time firefighter, that just means we don't have weekend day coverage. But then you're relying on call firefighters who don't wanna stick around for the weekend.
Or you do the ambulance transport and you pay for that would pay for a tremendous amount of personnel costs. And that's something that needs to be a conversation that's on the table. So that's $60,000.
If you're not gonna regionalize, then you should take advantage of the revenue.
The revenue that is driving out of town, so the equipment that we're using, that we're asking for more money for, would be covered by the ambulance. And so that is a real conversation, that is what Wenham is doing right now, they're already doing it, Middleton's doing it, that's where we regionalize, because they have they have all the hardware, we don't need any increases in equipment, we have everything we need, and that's what saves lives, because we can do it faster. And so, that's the conversation that I think isn't appropriate for right now, but is appropriate for the next year.
Yeah.
That's where we need to go, is to take that revenue that is driving out of town and work to operationalize that.
And then the multi-year conversation about the bigger regionalization.
Yeah. Yep.
which again is not us.
Yeah, that's okay, I'll